Welcome everyone to the Things Around 8. In this video we will talk about the deployment of hundreds of French Special Forces elements to New Caledonia, a former French colony in Oceania, which is in a state of emergency due to violent protests. This Thursday, May 16th, a new French contingent of police forces arrived in New Caledonia, in Oceania, after several days of increasingly violent protests. In total, France sent 1,000 security forces, which will reinforce the contingent of 1,700 police officers who already work in the region. But what exactly is New Caledonia's status in the French Republic? And why was Paris forced to send so many police officers there? Like most of the great European kingdoms of the past, France was also a great colonial power, with vast and rich territories that stretched across the 5 continents. The last phase of the French colonial expansion process took place in the 19th century and became known as the Second Empire, an expansion that also focused on Southeast Asia and Oceania. During this phase, Emperor Napoleon III, nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, doubled the area of the French Overseas Empire, which included, among other territories, Cochinchina, in the south of present-day Vietnam, at the time known as Indochina, and New Caledonia, an island with an area of 18,500 square kilometers located halfway between Australia and the Fiji Islands, in Oceania. Although the island was discovered by the Englishman James Cook in 1774 and was initially explored on a commercial level by American whalers, interest in the island only really began to grow in 1840 because of sandalwood, seen as one of the most expensive woods in the world. Also widely used for extracting oil for perfumery. And so, in 1853, Emperor Napoleon III tried to take formal possession of that island, converting it into an overseas colony. In 1864, large deposits of nickel were discovered in the region, attracting even more French exploratory attention, which increased its presence in the region through the establishment of large mining companies. The island's native people, known as the Kanak, were driven from much of their land, with tens of thousands sent to reservations, where they suffered diseases previously unknown to them, such as smallpox. From an original population of 60,000 individuals, the Kanak people have been reduced to just over 25,000. During World War II, after France humiliatingly surrendered to Germany after just a month and a half of war, New Caledonia expelled the French collaborationists, deciding to join forces with the Allies, with the island becoming an important base Allied air and naval forces in Oceania, serving, between 1942 and 1943, as a base for the United States Navy's South Pacific Fleet, receiving, until the end of the war, 50,000 American soldiers, a number greater than the population total of the island at that time. In 1946, shortly after the end of the war, New Caledonia was transformed from a colony into an overseas territory, with all local inhabitants receiving, from 1953, French citizenship, and consequently, all the rights of French citizens. Between the 60s and 70s, the population on the island grew, driven by the increase in nickel exploration, with the Kanaki people becoming a minority after the arrival of new waves of French and other peoples from Asia and Oceania. It was around this time that independence movements began to grow on the island, leading to very violent clashes between the 70s and 80s. And despite the French government offering sovereignty to the island, groups of Kanaks intensified the violence of the attacks, which included murders and even kidnappings. The situation only normalized in 1998 with the signing of the Noumea Agreement, which gave the Kanak people greater political autonomy. The agreement also provided for the holding of 3 referendums aimed at giving local inhabitants the choice on whether or not they wanted the island's independence. And in all the referendums held in 2018, 2020 and 2021, the majority of the population chose to remain part of France. But now, in 2024, some more violent pro-independence groups have begun to gain strength after the approval of a law that gives the right to local voting to French citizens with 10 years of residence on the island. For these pro-independence groups, this right to vote will put the Kanak people, who make up 40% of the local population, at a disadvantage. This led to a series of very violent disturbances, which have already resulted in 4 deaths and dozens of injuries in the 3 municipalities that make up the island. But the situation could be even more serious than it seems, with France accusing Azerbaijan of being the cause of all this. According to French Prime Minister Gabriel Attal, Azerbaijan, as revenge for the support that France offered to Armenia in the Nagorno-Karabakh War, invited pro-independence groups from New Caledonia to a conference in Baku in July 2023, with the Azeris allegedly offering these groups diplomatic support and, according to the French government, financial support for guerrilla actions. And that is why France, fearing the start of a conflict on the small island, supported and financed by Azerbaijan, is sending hundreds of police and special forces elements to ensure that this violent movement does not gain even more momentum. And that's today's news. Thank you very much for watching the video. And now I invite you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so we'll see you more often, and so you'll be up to date with everything that's happening.